Hi everyone, good morning. I'm Leigh. Welcome to my panel. So, first things first, I'm going to be presenting on tea etiquette this morning, but I'd like to have a discussion if anyone wants to talk about either questions about etiquette or anything else. Feel free to ask in the chat. I'll try to check it a couple times. I see there's some messages in the chat now. Um, but yeah, welcome everybody. So, got my tea this morning, made a blooming white tea, and then I also have some snacks, but it's early, so I may not eat too much. Um, so I think the first thing to know about tea etiquette is there's different tea etiquette around the world, and I have not been to China, Russia, I haven't been to India. I used to live in Japan, so I'm a little bit familiar with Japan, but I'm sure there's plenty of you out there who may know more than me. And if something that I say is wrong, I apologize. I was doing research online to try to learn a little bit more to supplement. So the first thing we'll do is we'll start out with history. So there's a lot of yeah, I could not do a tea panel without tea. There's a lot of tradition built up into tea, thousands of years worth of tradition, and you'll hear stories here and there. Many of them are possibly apocryphal, like the pinky out. We'll get into that when we talk about British tea etiquette, but that's not really a thing you have to observe. So I think first things first, let me check the chat. Welcome. Make sure there's no pressing issues. Yeah, I am not a morning person either. This is I would not be awake right now, and I definitely wouldn't be dressed if I didn't. Thank you, Jamie, for the comment. Yeah, definitely. Please make tea. Please have tea with me together, just like we're at an event. That's what's so fun about the virtual event. So, anyway, I think I better pour myself some tea. I'm tired. And one thing to note is that in British tea etiquette, the saucer is supposed to stay on the table. I did not know that until I was doing my research. I am a very bad person at this. I usually hold my saucer and use it to catch the drips, but apparently that's considered poor etiquette. In Japan, I don't know the name of the vessel, but it's a teacup with no handle. And for that, you do hold the little dish and the cup together with both hands. But for British tea etiquette, like at many of our afternoon teas, leave the saucer on the table. And these are all just tips. So I think one thing for our younger viewers is keep in mind that anytime you're out at public at an event, you want to minimize the amount of rudeness or distractions in general. And so things like screaming, yelling, throwing things, although you may be having fun, kind of undermines the formality of the event and may make it difficult for other people to enjoy. So definitely be sure to enjoy what you're doing, but you want to be sure that you're doing it in a way that doesn't disrupt other people's event. Going along with that, one thing that I learned in my research is you're not supposed to stir your tea in a spoon when you're at afternoon tea in a circle. You're not supposed to stir your spoon in a circle. It's loud, it's clanging, it's disruptive. I've definitely been guilty of this myself. You're supposed to gently fold the sugar or cream back and forth, gently. So you start at like the 6 o'clock position, fold your tea up to 12, fold it back and forth a few times. Don't be clanging your spoon around, just like you shouldn't be yelling while you're at tea. I think a common thing you may or may not know is that afternoon tea and high tea are different things. So your normal tea, where you have some sandwiches on the bottom, and then some scones, and then some sweets up top, that's more of an afternoon tea served between 3 to 5 p.m. Your high tea is more of an actual meal where you might have meat at it. So a lot of times people will say high tea when what they really mean is a British afternoon tea. Desserts, sandwiches, scones are all things characteristic of a British afternoon tea. And for the Brits, no slurping. If you're drinking a matcha at a matcha ceremony, you may slurp your tea, but at a British tea ceremony, that is a faux pas. So again, I have not been to China, but it's a very important part of tea culture. So as my tea, I have some. I think my um, blooming tea is from China. Another one that I really like is Lapsang Souchong. I don't have any today, but that's a nice smoky tea from China. So I wanted to get into some Chinese tea etiquette. So in Chinese tea etiquette, the host will sit at the position of importance, and then the next guest of honor will be on the left hand side of the host, and then next to them, and so on, in order of either importance, seniority. The host will drink first at a Chinese tea ceremony. It's important to tap two fingers on the table to show gratitude. Drink slowly, never spit or be wild. Calm or relax. So that's something that carries over. Is it's more of a formal event. It's built up with a lot of tradition. So again, for our younger viewers, or those of you who may be more excitable, try not to get too loud and rambunctious during tea. It's a faux pas, and in some cultures you do want to be loud, but for the tea ceremonies that we're talking about, you kind of want to maintain a refined solemnness to it so that everyone can enjoy it. And also to show respect for the tea, because I think that's something in Chinese and Japanese culture is showing respect for what you're drinking, respect for the tools by which you're drinking it. There's a lot of tradition that goes into this. And getting back to the pinky out thing, I had heard a story a while back that it was from the Victorian era where salt was very expensive. And so when you're eating your little sandwiches and scones, that people would have a dab of salt to lick. And that was the origin of the pinky out. But in doing research online, there's no definitive answer. So another possible origin is just the handleless cups that were some of the earliest tea vessels, and drinking those with the pinky out for stabilization. But nowadays, it's not part of etiquette. Do not put your pinky out. You may come off a little silly if you're doing that. Something that's kind of common across cultures is not pouring for yourself. The host will typically pour, and in some, the host will go first. In some cultures, it's not as important. But I think waiting until everyone has their food and everyone is situated is an important part of etiquette. You don't want to be chowing down before everyone else has their stuff. Let me check the chat and see what comments we have so far. Oh, thank you. So I'm glad I'm not totally off track with my research. Apparently, tapping the fingers on the table is also a thing during dim sum. I have not had dim sum yet, but I'm glad I'm not totally off track right now. Um, so that being said, I think a lot of this is kind of going into just using your normal decorum, using your indoor voice, not running around, not being too loud. Brewing your tea and selecting tea is not that important to etiquette, especially nowadays. There's some ceremonies like matcha where you're going to drink the traditional teas. But if we're having a normal tea like we have for Japanese fashion, usually flavored tea is considered acceptable. I know some people are kind of purists and don't like flavored teas, but for me, I've got some acai berry. I love flavored teas. An important thing to keep in mind when you're brewing your different teas is brew them for the appropriate amount of time. Most teas are depends on the tea. So a black tea, typically like 5 to 7, green tea a little less time, and white tea even less than that. I've probably made mine bitter by having it steeping the whole time we've been talking, but that's okay. So tea is an important thing in our fashion community, in Japanese fashion. It's just a good time to get together, get to know people, interact in a fun setting that you wouldn't normally get to interact in. At least I'm assuming most people don't go to afternoon tea regularly. So keep that in mind, use your good etiquette, and get to know people. So when we're going back to etiquette, making people feel included is important. And there's obvious faux pas, like you would never want to make fun of somebody at tea if they're being loud and rambunctious and they're bothering you. Try to pull them aside and make a comment to them that's not in front of the group, because you don't want anybody to feel bullied, harassed, embarrassed, or excluded. So I think making new friends is an important part of good etiquette. If you want to be introverted and don't want to talk to anybody, that's okay. But one thing that could be an issue is you have new people go in and out of comms. And so if you're clicked up and you don't take the time to say hi to new people, it can make them feel excluded. And so always keep that in mind, whether you're the host or not. We can all do our part to create a good experience for people. Everyone matters, so everyone who's at the tea party, whether you planned it or not, when you're a host, you're more visible, and so comments that you make will be especially egregious if you're being rude to somebody or being loud and wild or rude to the servers. That'll especially stick out. But anyone in the party will affect that view. So, one concern that a lot of people have is public perception of Japanese fashion. And etiquette can really help with that. Using your manners, if somebody's being disrespectful and staring, you can possibly say something, don't feel obligated to, but be careful that in saying something, you're not using language that would tend to bring embarrassment to the community as a whole. It's true that none of us are representatives of the community. I'm not a spokesperson for AP, but if I go out wearing AP, it's going to shape what people think of people who wear AP. And whether you agree with that or not, I think that's important to keep in mind, because I like fashion and I don't want people to get the wrong idea about it. And going along that vein, it's great to take fun shots with your community, but you should be careful to do not to do things like that could cause embarrassment to the community. So showing off your bloomers or petticoats in public. If somebody runs up to you and lifts your skirt, definitely please say some words. Hey, please don't do that. I know it's kind of a fun thing. Sorry about that. I'm getting a call. I'm gonna stop that. But yeah, so it's great to have fun and do your JoJo poses. But if you're standing there showing your bloomers off in public, that may send the wrong message about Japanese fashion. And while you're not a spokesperson, we're all in this community together, even if you're somebody who only gets tea by yourself, even if you're somebody who never goes to a comm meetup, if you're doing embarrassing things in public and that gets out on the internet, people share photos, and it makes us all look ridiculous. So I know I would appreciate it if other people would not take the silly shots bent over showing their bloomers. People may misinterpret it as a fetish thing. And there's absolutely no part of fashion that is fetish in this community. There are other fashions that revolve around that, but for Japanese fashion, people do what they do, and it's just about the clothes and nothing else. Sorry, that was super loud. I told you I'm not the best person to be talking about etiquette, but I'd like to. Yeah, most embarrassing behavior for sure. For sure, for sure. Uh, yeah, exactly. It's expensive to go to tea. If I go to an afternoon. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry about that. The sound went out for a minute. I'm glad that Jamie thinks I'm being positive. I was worried that I might offend somebody, and I really didn't want to do that, because it's great to have fun, but you can have fun in a professional, family friendly manner. um, yeah, so anyway, getting back to tea is not cheap, right? When we're going to an afternoon tea, we're paying anywhere between maybe 25, 30 at the low end to 50 or 60, or even for a brand tea party, like $100. So If you want to get litty and get wild, that's great. There's a time for that. But afternoon tea is generally not the time to get turned up. I don't think I've ever been guilty of that. So I feel like I've sufficiently briefed you on tea equipment. Something that you will sometimes see is the sugar cubes. You can take as many or as few or none as you want. That's not part of etiquette. There's different theories on whether you put your milk in first or subsequent to the tea. That's really not that important. You may have people telling you there's a right or wrong way to do it, but with the modern pottery that most of us are using, there's not much risk of cracking the pottery. You can go ahead and put your milk in first if you feel like it, or put your tea in first. With most of the pottery that we're using, it's not going to create a difference. Temperatures of brewing tea. Some teas, especially your black tea, like we mentioned, you can steep it longer. And going along with that, you can also use hotter water to draw out those flavors. I've got some flavored teas, and again, I know some people may tell you, oh, that's not real tea, but there's a long tradition of flavoring tea, and there's some very good flavored teas. If you're at a traditional type of ceremony, then please drink the traditional teas. Don't spit it out. Be polite and know that some of them are stronger. Like I've got a genmaicha, which is made with roasted rice. And that's a little bit more of a savory flavor. It's especially good with afternoon tea, in my opinion. Some people like sweet teas. The genmaicha is a green tea with the roasted rice, and it's traditional. There are other teas like hojicha, which are, I believe, also roasted, and you can brew those, I think, between 160 and 180. It's not poor etiquette. I will say, if you're a host, part of good etiquette could be ensuring that you have something available. I know some people do not like tea at all and would appreciate if you had tisane herbal infusions or fruit-based blends that do not include actual tea. Things like hot chocolate may be a little bit more of an ask at most tea places. So if you have any special requirements, I would hope that you'd be comfortable bringing up with the host, because anyone who's hosting a tea for their community wants to be inclusive. I'm assuming there's nobody out there who is intentionally trying to exclude people or be rude. So if you have any special restrictions, please be sure to bring that up with the host and do so in a timely manner. If you are mentioning, let me check the comments, make sure everything's going okay. Hot chocolate gives Nicole a stomachache. I am sorry about that. Yeah, an electric kettle with variable temperature settings. I've got my electric kettle, and yeah, I'll talk about that for a minute. Hello. It's good to see some of my old friends. Oh no, I'm stuck in the chat. I don't know how to get out of the chat. Let's go back to, oh geez. Let me see if I can figure this out. How to get back to the, oh, sorry. Let's see. Can't get out of the comments. Let me refresh. Sorry.
Hello. Leigh just got back. Okay, perfect.
Got stuck in the comments. So embarrassing. Most embarrassing. Having some technical difficulties.
I'm glad we got you back.
Thank you for bearing with me. I appreciate you. So sorry about that. Um, yeah, so we were talking about inclusivity of diets. Again, most people in the community want to be inclusive. Thank you guys for being so supportive. I I am not very good at technology, and so I really appreciate Jamie and everyone for helping me out and allowing me to put on this presentation. So, I know dietary restrictions are important to a lot of people. Again, I would ask if you please bring it up with your host at least a week prior would be best, or if nothing else, a couple days prior so that the host can try to accommodate you and do the best they can. And it may even go down to choosing a new place to have tea. And sometimes that may not be possible, but at a good tea place in the States, most of them are very willing to accommodate gluten free and vegan. But yeah, I'm so excited to have all my friends here. Let's see. Yeah, I really appreciate the community that we have in Japanese fashion because everyone is so compassionate and understanding. And not just with dietary restrictions, but if we've got something going on, I know I've helped people out and people have helped me out. Things like carpooling, or you just need somebody to talk to. Japanese fashion has been amazing. And sometimes you don't have the emotional bandwidth to deal with people. That's not rude, but it's a great community in the sense of if you need somebody to talk to, there's always someone here, whether you want to talk about AP or whether you want to talk about life. Because there's a lot of people here who we're all different ages, and that's what's so interesting. So I know I started out with some stuff that's very basic, like not running around and being loud even when you're having a good time. And for us older folks, it goes without saying, we don't really have as much energy as the younger folks anyway. Oh, which brings me to something that I think is important to mention for etiquette. If you're going to a Japanese fashion meetup, yeah, food allergies are a huge thing, and I know I do my best to be accommodating when I'm hosting, and just don't ever feel like you're a burden because we understand. Most people are sympathetic that there are unusual and rare allergies. One of my friends is allergic to strawberries, and a lot of people are allergic to dairy. So don't ever feel like you're being a burden by bringing it up. Please say something because for me, if I'm hosting, I want everyone to have a good time and feel included. And so, if don't feel like you have to keep it to yourself. Okay. Going back to etiquette. Sorry for the long tangent. If you were going to a Japanese fashion meetup, wear Japanese fashion. If you genuinely need somebody there for emotional support and they don't wear Japanese fashion, I would appreciate it if I'm hosting. If you ask, hey, can I bring my boyfriend, girlfriend, mom? Because most of us will try to be inclusive, try to be understanding, but it can definitely make people uncomfortable depending on who you're bringing. Because believe it or not, some people out there are predators. Some people out there are looking to take advantage and be inappropriate to make people uncomfortable, and they enjoy that. So if you're going to bring somebody who's not part of our community to a meetup, please keep in mind whether or not there's somebody who's safe for all of us. A lot of communities have minors, and so if you've got somebody who has issues with boundaries and doesn't know what's really socially appropriate, maybe you don't bring them around to meet up with minors. Or the reverse, if you are bringing your children to a meet, that's a pretty big faux pas. Some people don't like kids, some people have anxiety, and some people are just very worried that a child would spill things on them, which is understandable. I've got my son who's 4, and he will absolutely spill things on you. So I don't think I would bring him to a meetup ever. And if I did, I would absolutely ask my friends, ask anybody that's coming, hey, are you opposed to me bringing my child? Don't just assume. And even if they're a baby, babies don't do much. Babies just kind of hang out. But still, don't just bring your baby to a meetup because they do spit up and they do have accidents. And you don't want to be responsible for somebody's puppet circus getting vomit or other bodily fluids on it from a child, even as cute as your child may be. Pets, I haven't really seen as much of an issue with people bringing to meets as much as like boyfriends, partners, parents. Again, please check before you bring people to those meets. I can't see the comments now, so I apologize if somebody's got any horror stories. I'm sure there's a lot of them out there. Not everybody is good, not everybody is safe. And some people just have anxiety and only want to interact with like minded people. As long as you're not intentionally excluding people, if you're going to do that, just have a private meetup. You don't always. We're getting vomited on as we speak. So it just goes to show that pets and children may not always be the most welcome at the meetup, and it would be a major faux pas if you just assume, hey, my baby's 6 months old, they're so cute, no one would possibly have a problem. I'll dress them in some Shirley Temple cute or something. Don't just make that assumption, because you may be wrong and something terrible may happen. Maybe everything goes smoothly, but even if everything goes smoothly and nobody gets vomited on, just know that it makes some people uncomfortable, and we want to try to be inclusive. We got chocolate covered bananas. They're delicious. I realize now that I don't have a napkin, so just a second. Major faux pas. Major faux pas right there. Talking about napkins. So, a napkin in British etiquette, if you'd like to be invited back to an event with that same host, you can fold it up when you're leaving and place it on the left side. Place the napkin in your lap while you're eating to catch things. There's different theories about napkins. It's kind of a dramatic way to put it. But use your napkin, don't blow your nose in your napkin, don't spit out food in your napkin, excuse yourself to the bathroom if you have to do something like blow your nose or spit something out. Please don't do that in front of the entire table, because that is poor etiquette. We are almost at time, and so let me see if there's any questions in the chat. Hopefully I can figure out how to get out of it. Yeah. Questions in the chat. There we go. Yeah, I think I can't emphasize again enough how great Japanese fashion community is, because we've always got a friend here, and even me. You can always message me. I work a lot. I'm busy a lot, but I love to talk to people, and whether it's about, is it okay to clink while stirring? According to what I found on the internet, some people think it's poor etiquette in British tea drinking, but like I said, I've been guilty of it myself. I think there's worse sins, so you want to keep clinking, let's keep clinking and get all of our sugar dissolved. That was really, like, I'm sure they're not even here. They probably didn't know about our event at all. When you go to an event and somebody is wearing an Attack on Titan cosplay, dragging their boyfriend who's wearing a fursuit, I'm probably not reaching them right now, and my condolences. Yeah. So I think something like clinking your tea is a far less serious offense. And slurping your tea, I probably just slurped just now. When can you start reaching for food? So the best manners would be, and I'm at time, so if Jamie wants to cut me off, feel free, but You should wait until everyone has their food. If they say it's okay to go ahead and start, then you can go ahead and start. But you really don't want to be that person who, as soon as you get your plate, destroys the food and then leaves early, because it's a social event. We're here to have camaraderie, talk to other people, have a good time. And if you are grabbing things, oh, thank you, Jamie. So if you're grabbing things, A, you're being rude, and B, I haven't really seen this be as much of an issue, but if somebody's trying to take everything, like say you've got some sandwiches that are salmon and cucumber and you just love those, maybe ask before you take 3 cucumber and salmon sandwiches if the tea service is for the whole table. Because otherwise, we who don't reach out and grab everything will end up not having enough cucumber and salmon sandwiches. There's a specific order in which to eat your food. So it's generally considered that you eat from the bottom of the service to the top. My dish here only has 2 tiers. I don't know if you can even see it. So for a 3-tier service, you'll have your sandwiches on the bottom, scones in the middle, and sweets on the top. And that's typically the expected order that you eat your food in. And just real quick, if you have multiple sets of silverware, you'll eat from the outside in with that silverware. So hopefully that answers your question. It's not a serious faux pas to eat it in a different order, but it's essentially the order from bottom to top that is expected. So your dessert will be on top. If you want to start with dessert, I don't think it's rude, as long as you're being sure to include everyone and not grab all the cheesecakes for yourself while everyone else is still eating sandwiches. I think that's the more serious etiquette violation. So basically just eat the savories first. Yeah, just basically eat the savories first. You're not doing anything rude if you start with your chocolate covered strawberries. So at some places they'll have a warming dish on top to keep the scones warm. Some sweets can be rather heavy, yes. Which is why I say I don't think it's a faux pas, and especially if, like, I don't usually like the scones. So if you didn't want to eat the scones at all, you could ask, hey, is it okay if I take 2 sandwiches? I think communicating with your table so that you're not hogging everything is the best course of action. Well, what was I going to say about that? Oh, when you eat your scone, break it in half, and then you put your butter or your clotted cream and jam on either side of the broken halves. Just reading the comments, sorry. Yeah, that's the correct way to eat a scone, but if you're taking small nibbles of it, I don't think that's poor manners. It's just the expected way to eat the scone is that you break it in half and put your stuff on it. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. I will let you go, and thanks so much again for joining me. Have a good day, and thank you, Jamie, for the support.